Start the recording. Well, welcome everyone to our first official review session. Session number 1. We're going to be reviewing chapters 1 and 2, and it's really mainly chapter 1. Chapter 2, as you'll see, is there aren't as many test questions. It's stuff that we can kind of glean if and when we will be tasting together at times. We'll kind of use some of their terminology. The main focus today is chapter 1. And chapter 1 is very important. It's to me almost the least riveting read because it's a lot of technical stuff. I am not Cone Nye, the science guy, as you guys will soon learn. I'm not a really science-minded person, and there's a lot of science. So when I was learning this the first time a couple of years ago, this chapter it pained me. There's a lot of for me, tough concepts, probably not for you guys, but just on the way things work. But it's really important that we really master chapter 1 because it's going to set the stage for the rest of the book. Because we're going to talk about some aspect of, distillation, of course, or all these methods in the next, whatever, how many chapters do we have? 12, 13, something like that. We'll talk about it every chapter, basically. So it's really important to wrap our heads around chapter 1. What do you guys think of the reading? Do we have a lot of science-minded people? Anyone or distillation nerds?
A lot of tedious info.
A lot of tedious info, right? You're having a bout of insomnia. Pick up, turn to chapter 1, right? But it's all good stuff. All right, let's get going here. I did hit record. Okay, here we are on Thursday, September 19th. I cannot believe it's already September 19th. Okay, yeah, there are 12 chapters, right? So we are good there. I was right. And, oh, Renee, I didn't tell you this beforehand, but I'll need to ask you later what your Last Supper cocktail would be. You're being executed tomorrow. It's your last night on Earth. What are you eating and what are you drinking? You can think about it. I won't put you on the spot, but I do need to ask you and make a decision today on what Reign of Throne themed team you would like to be on. So we got Lannister, Hound, Stark, and Targaryen, and I would love it if you picked one of the first two just because to kind of keep it a little more even in teams.
Okay, Team Lannister.
Lannister, nice. Hold on 1 second. Let me add you to it. How'd she get there? How'd she get
baby.
there? How'd that happen?
So cute.
I think I need to update that photo though. She keeps growing in size and power. All right. Okay.
Before I know it, she'll be an alligator. So I call my daughter now because she rolls out of everything. Like put a sock on, rolls out of it. Pants, rolls out of it.
Nice. Be an X-Men eventually. All right, so let's look at the team scores right now. We got 10 points right here for Targaryen. Mother of Dragons, Amanda there, I think didn't you win last week? Is that who won the orientation quiz? I believe that was you. And then Team Stark came in second, so that's 7 points. And then Bobby came in third place for Team Lannister. Team Hound, still waiting to get some points on the board. But today could be a day. And remember, the stakes are huge because we got a pizza party on the line. Ooh, I got Renee with that one, didn't I? I'm feeling good, guys. I like this new girl. She's great. She laughed at my Pizza Hut joke.
Pizza party.
So we talked about the pyramid of CSS success. We need to do all of these things if you want to pass, and we all will. I did not send the big resource email yet. Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm going to send that to you guys today or tomorrow. Let me put that on my list here, make sure. Basically, everything that's on the internet. So we'll have it 2 places. You can go to the big resource CSS under the HR product knowledge tab, or I'm going to send you an email that you can just search hashtag the big resource and it'll come right up for you. Okay. And Renee, sorry to put you on the spot repeatedly this morning, but would you download the GroupMe app so you can join us on GroupMe? I think most of us are on there, but I think there's only 9 or 10. So we're missing a few people. And I'm going to call you out right now. Who's not in the group? Parth? What the hell, man? What are you thinking, Bart?
I couldn't get it to work last week.
Oh, okay. Likely story. That's all right. See if you can
I got it now, though.
You got it. Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
Is everyone else in?
Mine still says pending.
Pending? Oh, I might need to approve you.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We'll do that in a second. In the meantime, let's do a Kahoot. Post live. Okay. Classic mode. And we're all familiar with Kahoot. Why is there no lobby music? No music. It's gonna throw me off. Julia, do you mind just humming some music for us while we do this?
I don't know if you guys want all that.
Alexa, play the Jeopardy theme song.
Also, my Wi-Fi is not working here in this Chick-fil-A, so it will not let me get on the Kahoot.
Oh, there you go.
Dialing in from the Chick-fil-A. That's bold.
I have a ride with today, and I live in Athens, so I had to be in Decatur, so it just wasn't going to work out the way that I wanted it to. Had to get over here early.
I appreciate your diligence. That's great.
I'm trying.
Okay, everyone in?
Yeah, can't play.
All right, let's go ahead and get this going here. Oops. There we go. I think we have 10 or so questions. I can't remember. All right, here we go. Question 1. Which of the following distillate fractions is composed of high boilers, which are often poisonous? High boilers. Heads, hearts, tails, or booties? Which one is
Yep.
it?
Heads. I don't know if I'm playing. Am I playing?
Did you
Do you just-
join? Did you join
just-
the?
Should I join it?
Yeah, you use your phone kind of like a remote control.
Oh,
We
okay.
scan the QR code.
Is it via group me?
No, I'm so
Sure.
sorry. I'll have to explain it to you next time. Or
Okay, I
get-
should have spoke. I should
What
have
do you-
spoke up, but
Oh yeah,
okay.
no problem. What you can do right now if you want to join in is go to kahoot.it on your phone, not .com.it, and put in
Okay.
the pin here, which is 539. It'll be down here the whole time. 539.
Okay, sorry.
No,
I
you're
should have
good.
said, oh, yeah, we all know Kahoot, sure.
Yeah, it'll good. All right. Amanda with a quick thumb, 928 points, then Andy, and then Bobby. And that third position again. Let's try number 2 here. From the Latin term for to burn, referring to the application of heat during the distillation process. What word are we talking about? Ardent, alembic, combustion, or destillare?
Hey,
Okay, most of us got the ardent. Ardent spirits is that Latin term. Well done. To burn. Someone's got to start singing something. I don't know what's going on with my Kahoot. Good job, Amanda, and then Bobby, and then Andy, still top 3. Question 3, which of the following is part of the analyzer of a column still? The worm condenser, the downcomer pipe, the rectifying section, or the reflux tube? This is a fun question, isn't it? Okay, the rectifying section is right. Some of us didn't even take a stab at that one, I see. And I get it. Okay. Ooh, Parth is on the board. Question 4. Louching is when a spirit becomes cloudy because of the addition of what? Water, alcohol, botanical oils, or sugar? Louch, loosh, however you want to say it. Water is right? Think of absinthe. Learn a little bit more about that later. Amanda on a hot streak, and then Chase in second place. Question 5, of the following stills, which can produce the highest proof distillate? Patent still, coffee still, single column still, or multiple column still? Okay, that's right, the multiple column still. It's like basically like a bunch of these coffee stills together, a column still thrown together, right? In a row. Taking it to 11. All right, question 6. Which of these base ingredients used to produce alcoholic beverages requires saccharification? Is it grapes, barley, apples, or none of the above? Saccharification, no breathing. Oh, nice. Wow, we all got it. 8 for 8. Got barley, right? We need to convert those starches into sugars, fermentable sugars. All right, great job, everyone. Question 7, what is the boiling point of pure ethyl alcohol? 173, 212, 100 degrees Celsius, or none of the above? Okay, that's right, 173, right? It's the foundation of all distillation is built on the premise of these two temperatures we'll talk about later today. A couple more here. Find my mouse. Question 8. Acids, aldehydes, and other compounds created during fermentation that lend aromas and flavors to distilled products are what? Lees, wash, congeners, or all of the above? Okay, you guys are crushing it. Yeah, it's congeners, right? Taking you to Flavor Town. Okay. Question 9, which of the following processes of oak aging is most responsible for the formation of aldehydes? Most responsible. Concentration, filtration, evaporation, or oxidation? Oh, you guys are crushing it this morning. Yes, 9 for 9, oxidation, right? Aldehydes. Delicious aldehydes. What's the term for the first batch of distillate in brandy production? Low wines, brewy, new wash, or early boy? They call me the early boy, but brewy is the right answer. That first batch. Okay, I think we got one more. This oak heartwood components cements the fiber cells and wood together. Is it cellulose, lignin, hemicellulose, or semi-hemicellulose? Get those answers in. Okay, 5 of us got that it's lignin, right? The lignan's like the glue. Cagney's like, yeah, I knew that one. Give me a hard one, Chief. All right, jazz hands for Amanda, Chase, and Neil. Well done, guys. You got points for your teams. Well done. Let me take a quick screenshot, and we're gonna do a group photo. Hold on a second. One moment. Such a good-looking group. Let me get my little thingy up. Snipping tool. Okay, everyone smile. There we go. What do y'all think? Pretty good. Okay, how do we feel about that Kahoot quiz? Talk to me.
If I played, I would have beat all of you. Amanda, I would have been coming for you.
Oh, snap. Wait, are y'all on the same team? Let's see.
No.
No, you're not. So Targaryen, sorry, Team Hound talking a lot of trash. I like that. Okay, so, and I can't remember if I told you guys this last week, but the way I formatted these questions or picked these questions is the first time. So I took the CSS, this exam for the first time, learned about spirits in 2020, my first time teaching it as well. And so I would read the book and then I would try to fill out the workbook, and the things I could not get in the workbook, I turned into questions. Right. So, these were the hard ones for me. They might have been really easy for you, but that's the way I just kind of formatted everything. I think the ones that were a little tougher. So if they seem tougher, I didn't add any of the gimmies if you did your reading, if that makes sense. Okay, any questions before we start? Cool. Well, let's get into the history of distilled spirits. And I think I also mentioned this last week, but I've got you all printed out. And the way I do things here is I systematically call on all of you. And it's not to embarrass you, but it's to keep us all accountable. We're all going to miss a lot of these or a lot of questions, but I like to go team by team and ask questions just to make sure you are doing the reading. But for me, it would motivate me to say, oh crap, I got to read because I don't like getting questions wrong. But all that said, don't feel bad if you don't get one, because it's okay. We're all here to learn. We got to get vulnerable together. So let's talk about the history of distilled spirits going as far back as 3500 BCE. All the in Indian Sanskrit writings about alcohol way back then. Throughout time, it wasn't originally as something to imbibe. It was more for medicinal uses or perhaps perfume. Who can tell me what the word the Latin translation is trickle down? And I'm gonna ask somebody from Team Lannister, what is that word, Bobby? The Latin word for trickle.
I read it, but I can't remember.
Could anyone on your team, Parth or Chase, help us remember? Starts with a D.
Distillate.
It comes from we created the root of that word would be, oh shit, sorry, I thought it was destillare. My bad.
It is distillate.
It is destillare, but that was not the question I meant to ask. We did this on the Kahoot, but ardere, right, means to burn. And then destillare means the little trickle, to trickle down, right? So the little trickle. So when you're thinking of distilling, they were describing the way that, when the vapors went up the still, the reflux would trickle back down, right? So that's what the word destillare meant, which gave us the word to distill.
Mhm.
And ardere meant to burn. So when you hear ardent spirits, it's distilled beverages containing alcohol.
Distillate.
Okay. Let's move on to the Arabic word al-kul, right? Al-kul. So ethereal body generally means essence, right? So think of it like this. It was kind of the word for your spirit, right? So if you have your body, you've got your spirit, the essence of you is inside of you, right? Well, they just basically use that term to describe, a wine or whatever base you're using, a beer, and then the spirit or essence of that is the alcohol. So when we talk about spirits, that's where the word comes from. It's the spirit of the original beverage. Does that make sense? Of the wine or whatever it was you were making. We've used alcohol as digestive qualities throughout time, and it was generally safer to drink than water. If you think about the Middle Ages or before, water supply's nasty oftentimes, right? If you live downstream from the city, you're drinking pee-pee and poo-poo, probably, right? Not safe. The Romans actually had plumbing 2,000 years ago, but it wasn't until the English in the probably 1800s that anyone else tried to create a clean plumbing system. So if you have a little bit of alcohol in your beverage, it actually kills all that bacteria. And we actually asked the question, it was a year or two ago, I think. We said, well, if you're out day drinking, you're not hydrating yourself, right? So you're dehydrating yourself. How does that work? We found out that if it's below 4% ABV, you are hydrating yourself. So when you drink your whatever little sessionable Berliner Weisses, you're actually hydrating yourself, right? So get on it. But anything above 4%, and then you're dehydrating yourself. But a lot of those, medieval beers and spirit drinks were under 4%, so you were hydrating. And now it's considered to be more of a social lubricant. Okay. Oh, whoops. So I'll give someone a point if they can pronounce this word for me. Who wants to pronounce it for me? Anyone? Before I call on one of you. Dustin? Shake your head. I'm going to make you do it.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, do it.
Can't promise it's gonna be good. Usui. Bethel.
Sure, I don't really know how to say it, so that's probably it. So give everyone a good jazz hand to Christina. No, so this,
Give me some bonus points.
oh, you're getting 2 points for that. I'm not even kidding. Where'd you go? There you are.
Did I get bonus points for doing this from the airport?
You do, 100%. Oh, by the way, Christina's on vacation, so jazz hands for you for doing that. Is that,
I'm doing my market research at the airport bar.
yeah, what are you sipping on there?
Little Jack and Ginger.
All right, you get an extra, but you get +3 today. That's well done. Okay. Yes, so what I've heard, I've heard the pronunciation being something close to Lisgate Betha, right? That's the Irish Scottish way of saying, or that was the term for their first foray into kind of whiskey or spirits. And so the English tried to say this word, much like us, we're like, what the hell are they spelling there? So they anglicized it, right? And they said whiskey, Lisgay whiskey. That's where the word whiskey comes from, right? Which meant in Celtic, water of life. Whiskey bow was the other way to say it. Kind of neat. Okay. So bird's eye view here, what we're doing for distillation is we've got to pick a base ingredient, right? And if we need to, we're going to go through saccharification for grains, right? Things where we're locked up at our sugars are locked up in starches and we have to convert them, right? And then we go through a regular fermentation and then a distillation. All makes sense. We got a base ingredient like barley, let's say, or it could be something like a grape, or agave or whatnot. We will saccharify if we need to. Then we ferment that. Then we distill that, and then we bottle it. And you guys go stack cases, drop cases, make placements like it's hot. Okay. So let's talk about these 4 stages here. Step 1, the production of distilled spirits. So selection of the base ingredient. So every spirit essentially starts as either a beer or a wine. Beer just meaning the catch-all. This comes from grain. It needs to go through saccharification. Anything that would be the base ingredient here or the base for that distillate, we call a beer that's grain-based. Whereas a wine would be, we classify, of course, grapes, but anything with those already fermentable sugars. So agave would technically probably be, we would call it a wine when we're talking about bases, or even sugarcane, right? We're talking about rum or cachafa. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there we go. I got ahead of myself. Grapes, fruit, honey, sugarcane, and molasses for wines as bases, right? And then beer. Grains, cereals, potatoes, rice, anything that's starchy, we got to convert those starches into sugars, right? Okay, so, and have you guys gone through some beer training? I know Cagney just has. You guys done some beer stuff?
Mhm.
You might be familiar with saccharification already. So it's an enzymatic process to convert starch into fermentable sugars, right? Because you can't just, barley and wheat and all these other grains are not ready to go. So I think I've got a better slide on this. Let's keep on going here. It's essential for the initial fermentation. Starches contain polysaccharides, which must be converted into monosaccharides in order to be fermented. Yeast can't wrap their heads around these polysaccharides. They can't do it. It's too much of a mouthful. They need a monosaccharide, so we got to change them, right? Is that all I have for saccharification? Okay, we're going to be touching on this much later, but we've got to, change the state of that starch into sugar. I think this is bird's eye, so we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's talk about once we've got all these sugars that are ready to go, right? We need to ferment them. Fermentation. This is when we get our little Pac-Man. We release our yeast, little Pac-Man, they eat that sugar, and what do they fart out?
CO2 and alcohol.
My man, that's a point for Cagney. CO2 and alcohol and some other things, right? That's how fermentation works. Yeast eats that sugar, and then we've got alcohol. We got ethyl alcohol, right? And it also creates heat and creates CO2. Easy enough. Okay. One of the questions I might ask you, this one is kind of annoying, but they'll ask you, in terms of distillation, what is the ABV range of a wine? I'm going to ask somebody on Team Hound, Cagney, Aaron, or Julia.
8% to 14%.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting y'all to necessarily just get that right off the bat, but well done.
That's a
A
streak. Is that worth 2 points?
It's worth 1.1. 1.1. I'm giving you 0.1 over here, which could provide pretty useful in the future. You never know.
I'll take it.
I like the bargaining structure that's going on.
Yeah, you started it, Christina.
We're out here wheeling and dealing, okay?
Yeah. By the way, you get a point for every drink you order during this class. So if it gets
Ooh.
3 or 4, I mean, I'm just saying, if you care about your team.
You guys are done for.
Yeah.
Okay, so beers, according to the book, and this is what we need to remember, because this is an easy give me question if you get it. It's just you wouldn't intrinsically know the range, but it's a good one to remember. So beer 5 to 10%, wines 8 to 14. Usually the composition of a fermented beverage is 86 to 95% of total volume. And then we get to congeners, right? But before that, I got a couple other questions too I want to ask. So Team Stark, Tina, Amber's not with us, by the way. She got in a car wreck. She's fine, but they got in a little fender bender. But Tina Jordan is on vacation this week, and Neil. So really, Tina and Neil, tell me, what are lees? Help me out. What are lees?
Dead yeast cells.
Yeah, dead yeast cells. We talk about on this slide because these will be the product of fermentation. When you go through it, these Pac-Men will die. It's really sad. You get these dead Pac-Men all up in your beverage, but they add some really interesting, they can add really interesting notes to your beverage, right? They can add kind of toasty, biscuity type of notes, right? And then another byproduct of fermentation are fusel oils. I've got that on my thing, I believe. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk about Guy Fieri's Flavor Town, right? Congeners will take you to Flavor Town, right? So spirits with more congeners will have more flavor. We'll get into that in a second. We've got acids, esters, aldehydes, and fusel oils. All of these can be byproducts of fermentation. Okay, and distillation. I want to keep going here because I've got some. Here we go. I just wanted to make you guys look at Guy Fieri for a minute. So, a distiller's one of their main jobs is to control or decide how many congeners remain in the spirit, right? In the finished product. And the way we're going to control that is a lot of things with the base, what types of congeners are left over, but also the distillation, what type of distillation we're going to use, et cetera, will all affect and form the amount of congeners in a product, right? So we're talking about a spirit with fewer congeners, we can say, let's say vodka, right? The goal of vodka is usually to create something that's very pure, that is almost devoid of congeners, very few congeners. Who from Team Targaryen can give me an example of a spirit that is loaded with congeners, has a lot?
I'm Targaryen, right?
Yes.
Okay, I would say like bourbon.
Yeah, bourbon. Kind of the point of bourbon is to showcase some of these congeners from the base product that comes from, the corn for bourbon, right? Or maybe the wheat, whatever grain bill you're using. Oh, there we go. Bourbon. Okay. So we chose our base. Let's say our base was a beer. We went through saccharification, we went through fermentation, we created a beer, right? And now we're going to distill it. So let's talk about the heart of the concept of distillation, right? It all is based on the fact we've got two different sets of temperatures, right, that we talked about. We saw it on the Kahoot. There's 173 and there's 212. Team Lannister, what do these two numbers mean? What are they tied to?
Boiling point of alcohol and water.
Right. So that's the whole premise, is if you put if this pot right here was pure ethyl alcohol and you heated it up to 173, that's when it would start evaporating, right? If it wasn't pure ethyl alcohol, because most things are not, let's say it's a beer, so you got 5% ABV in here, right? And the rest is water. Well, at 173, what starts happening, or thereabouts? The alcohol will start to vaporize before the water, right? That water in that beer remains down here. But once you get to 173 and a little bit higher, you're moving on up to 180, 185, 190. You're starting to vaporize only the alcohol first. It's leaving the building. It's going up into the heavens or into your pot still or column still, right? It's moving on up. And what's left below is the water, because the water doesn't vaporize until what temperature? 212.
12.
212. Parth with the point. Where'd you go? Racking it up. Yeah, so that's the whole principle of distillation, is that you're vaporizing the alcohol first. It's the first thing to vaporize while you're leaving some of the other things behind, right? Now, as this goes up, I don't really like a slide. I want to see a still. We'll get to that. But as we move up and go through the still, what we do is cool down that steam. The alcoholic steam will recool it, and it'll condense back into a pure form of alcohol. That's how you go from a beer that's 5% up to new make whiskey eventually that would be much higher ABV. You're recooling down into a higher proof, and then you collect it, and then you bring it to Tina at the airport bar, and she will drink this entire thing just like that if you were to do it on a Thursday morning.
Only if there are points involved.
Yeah. She doesn't need a mixer, but if there's points, she's in. I should have made this whole thing on this. I like this slide better, right? So we're gonna, excuse me. Here's our little still. This is a traditional pot still. We put our beer down here. We heat it up. And the first things that are gonna evaporate is that alcohol, right? That pure ethyl alcohol. It's going to go up through the swan's neck, go down into the worm condenser where we cool things down. And this is when things start to condense again. It turns back into liquid at a higher alcoholic strength, right? And then we take it down here to a collecting safe. Wash is another name for beer, right? A base kind of fermented beverage that we'll use beer and wash synonymously in this class for the most part, right? Usually wash is a grain-based fermented beverage that we start down here. So far, so good. This is an alembic still. This is one of the first, this is the very first still type of still that was created back in the, the first example that we learn about is, I think in the book, it says 800, 900 AD, although they were distilling before that. But the alembic still, or the pot still, that's what this is. Okay. I got so ahead of myself. Dang it, blew it. But yeah, this is that principle, 212, 173. Who can tell me on Team Hound, what is this number, 96.5?
That's the percentage of alcohol that you fuck.
This one's a tough one, but they could ask you about it. Does anyone know? 96.5?
It's
Yeah,
the final mixture,
yeah.
right?
the
Highest that you
highest
can
alcohol
distill
Alcohol
at.
commercial content that can come distillation. out of a commercial distillation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, you all got it, I think. I don't know who get that point. Everyone gets a point. So it counts. Oh, well done. This is the highest you can basically achieve really with a column still, right? In labs, they can get it closer to 100 just for, I guess, shits and giggles, or if you're trying to make just pure ethyl alcohol for something, you can do it in a lab. But in commercial distillation that we will know, this will be the highest you can get.
Connor, question. Do you know on the test, will they ask us if Fahrenheit or Celsius or both?
They should ask in both. I don't think it matters. I think they'll provide both.
I'll take another. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, that's another point for Tina. I think I just heard she just ordered.
Point. Airport
Well,
cocktails hit different.
It's
They're
different,
awesome.
you know,
I
and
haven't
especially
flown.
when it's first thing in the morning.
Yeah, 1000%.
Where are you going?
Cancun for a bachelorette trip.
Dang,
Whoa.
I'm jealous.
Nice.
Yeah,
That'll be
man.
fun.
I was like, I got to get a little education in before we go.
Of course,
There
absolutely.
you go.
Feel productive.
On hand education there. I was just telling Jess this morning, he's like, I just want to be at the airport. Like I haven't been anywhere in a while, and I don't care about where we go. I just want to like get there 8 hours early, go to the Sky Lounge, and just hang out. You know,
Yeah, just hang out. Security
It's
is also
such
a breeze.
it's a whole experience.
I'm gonna fly to Chattanooga and then fly back, but I'm just spending like 2 hours at the airport.
You know, that would be an interesting bar design if you try to recreate something that has the airport vibe.
Ooh, I like that.
That's good. That's actually a great idea.
I don't hate that idea at all.
I mean, you could have been like us and fly out during the glitch.
Oh
We
gosh.
went to London. Oh, that
glitch.
glitch hit. That glitch thing that happened on a Friday. Me, Justin, David, Janelle all got stuck at the airport for God knows how long.
I'd be so happy.
Yeah, but
Best
Winfred
thing
wasn't
ever.
when we turned our expenses in. And he's like, I was like, we sat there for 6 hours. What do you think we were doing? Like,
I think that was the end of the trip though, wasn't it?
no, it was the whole thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
Wow.
no, the day we flew out was the day of the glitch. So we got stuck.
Mm.
Okay, so the name of our bar is called The Hangar or something, and you go in and you have like there's a TGI Friday. It's basically a TGI Fridays, and you hang out there and you have a crappy burger, but all the drinks you want, and then you go sit down and your cell phone doesn't work for 2 hours, and we all watch a movie together on your
Yeah,
phone.
we
That's
can't
it.
forget. We gotta put like random luggage in places. You know, it's gotta have the aesthetic.
Yeah, absolutely. This is $1 million idea that we just came up with. Okay, I digress. So let's talk about boiling points and miscible liquids. This back in my day in 2020, this took me a long time to wrap my feeble mind around a miscible liquid. Who can tell me actually real quick, what is Team Stark, Neil or Tina? What is a miscible liquid?
Isn't it like a solution that can like be soluble into itself? Like
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
mixed, basically.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Let's see. It's a new solution of water dissolved into another liquid, creating a new boiling point, right? So when we're talking about like a beer or something, that's a miscible liquid, a wash, right? It creates a new boiling point between the two. So here's another question, because they asked this one, and it was hard that this is a test question. So I'm gonna ask Team Targaryen, which is Amanda, Andy, Dustin, David Butts is on vacation, but would 30% ABV, a miscible liquid with 30% ABV and 70% water boil higher or lower than a 10%, 90% miscible liquid? So you got two liquids here. You got something that's 10% alcohol, 90% water. That's option A. And then option B is 30% ABV and 70% water. So the boiling point of the 30% ABV, would that be higher or lower?
Higher?
Lower.
It'd
Nope.
actually be
Lower. Lower, yeah.
Parth is shaking his head no. What's Parth?
I was shaking when she said higher, I was like, no.
Oh, I thought you were being like, nope, it's not lower. It's like, shit. Parth must be a science-minded person. He's about to call me out.
Isn't it because you kind of take like average of the two, like not necessarily like the average, but if you've got more water in it, it's going to have a higher boiling point because water has a higher boiling point.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's well said. I was going to say it the other way around, but it's the same thing, right? Because alcohol boils off at 173, right? So if you have 30% of your miscible liquid would boil off at 173, it's only going to take you to 180 or whatever the number is before the alcohol starts boiling off. Versus if you have a lot more water in your original, you only have 10% ABV in your miscible liquid, you might need to get to 195 or whatever the number is before the alcohol starts to burn off. Does that make sense? So the more alcohol you have, the lower your, the boiling point of that miscible liquid.
Mhm.
That took me about 3 months to figure out, but like I said, I'm not a science guy. Okay, so and there's a question there that kind of throws everyone off, so I want to make sure we get that. Oh yeah, there it is. Here's the number. Liquid composite 90-10 will boil at 197, whereas 70-30 will boil at 183. That's your case in point. They ask you a question using one of those examples. All right. Any questions thus far? We're doing great. Let's talk about the batch process for batch distillation. This is the OG style, right? Batch distillation. And basically a pot still, right? So what we're going to do is we have our first alcoholic liquid, our base, our beer or wine, broad terms here, which would be somewhere between, you can even say 5 to 15% ABV. Don't remember these numbers here, just as an example. And you go through your primary distillation. So you're going through that pot still example we just showed. You're going through one time, the first batch, right? Primary distillation, you're heating it up. And you're creating this first run, the alcoholic liquid will be around 25% ABV. Okay, who can tell me, Team Lannister, what was the name for this? We talked about it, we saw it in Kahoot. There was the Brewy in France. There's another name for this, for that first run in Scotland. Does anyone remember what that one's called? Because they'll ask you this. Team Bobby, Parth, or Chase.
Mhm.
Or me, our team, I think, am I Lannister?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't write you down there. Yes, Renee.
O to V? Is that not
O
right?
to V. So not exactly, but I like where your head's at. O to V just means like a finished spirit, like a brandy from anywhere in France. I'm looking for low wines, is what they're called. That first batch. Low wines. We call them Ordinario in Tequila Town. In Mexico, we call that the Ordinario or the Brewy. Doesn't really matter, but it's an easier test question of just if you just memorize it, right? So that's either way, that's your first distillation. So you went through your pot still, you've got this around 20, 30% ABV mixture. Well, now you're going to do it again. So you take it out and you put it back in. Okay, could put it back in and you go through a second distillation. Because most of the time we want to get to a spirit that's what, 40, 50, 60, 70% ABV. And then usually we would purify it down with water, right? So we start off with this first batch, this 25%, we put it through, and we go through the second distillation. Well, here is where things can get a little dodgy unless you are a skilled distiller. Because when you start boiling this one again, there are some dangerous things that come off the still. Okay? First, well, I don't know why this started first, but you got the heads. These are would these be high boilers or low boilers, Team Hound, Cagney, Aaron, or Julia? Would we call these high boilers or low boilers?
No boilers.
Low boilers, right? Low boilers because they boil at a lower temperature as you're heating up. Great job. These are low boilers. So the first things to kind of come off of the still, that vapor that goes through the system, goes through the still, these you don't want usually. They can be a little poisonous, but it might not taste right. It's not a good balance, right? What we're looking for is after you make this cut, you discard the heads or put them back in. We've got the heart. This is the heart of the run. This is the stuff that's good. This is what we can drink. And so we're heating that up. And then towards the end of the good stuff, we get the tails. These are the high boilers, right? Low boilers at first, high boilers. This is the end of the run. And these are the real poisonous ones. We can either throw them back in to be redistilled. We can just get rid of them. You can turn them into hand sanitizer because they're so high ABV, they kill everything, right? But you don't want to drink these. In Prohibition, people were starting to distill on their own and they go blind, right? Because they were drinking the tails.
Oh.
Drinking those faints. You can't do that, right? So you got to be careful. I don't know how like really, it'd be pretty scary stilling back in the day before all the technology. And some people still do it this way. We toured ASW last year for our mega review, and their distiller still does it the old-fashioned way, just tasting. It's crazy. I would be blind, but at least within 3 batches, I'd be done for. Amanda would be leading me around the office. Neil, another bathroom break. Neil, help me. Okay, so that's what, and now we've got something called a spirit safe we use in bourbon country a bunch. We have all sorts of ways to test these to see where you want to make your cut points. Does everyone understand that?
Yes.
And the byproduct, or the byproduct of this second distillation is our spirit that's usually between 50 and 70% ABV. And so that's coming straight off the still. What we'll normally do is proof this down, or you often will either now or after maturation to get it closer to, what a manageable drinking amount, like 40, 45. Often, usually after maturation, but either way, it's coming off about that. All right. Did I already ask you guys another name for heads?
4 shots.
4 shots. Okay, you got it. What about Team Stark? What about tails? Did we say the other name for tails? So Neil or Tina?
Like faint. FEI.
Yeah, a feint, right? Well done. Those are just synonyms that we need to know. Easy test questions. All right. Some of these slides I stole from Barry from Trinchero, so some of this is a little repetitive. But this gives you another little view of the heads are 4 shots. They're the first off the still. We call them low boilers. And we usually either redistill them, put them back in the bottom, or to get rid of them, and they're not potable. We don't drink them. Then we got the heart or potable spirit, the most desirable, and it has the most amount of preferred congeners. And then we have the tails or fates. They're the last ones off. We usually don't redistill these, I guess. I thought maybe we did sometimes, but usually just get rid of those. Okay. So let's talk about reflux and rectification. So oftentimes, especially in our first example of the pot still, you'll see, reflux happens all the time. It might be more associated with column still, but reflux is the vapor, when things start to vaporize, especially when you see like a copper pot still, they'll start clinging, the vapor will go up and then cling to the side of the copper. That's why we use copper often, because it can help get rid of the congeners we don't want. But some of that vapor will stick and condense on the side of that pot, and some of it just drops right back down into the pot. It doesn't vaporize all the way and go all the way yet, and so we call that reflux, right? And then this word rectification just means concentrating the alcohol in a liquid by repeated distillation. And we usually talk about rectification in terms of a column still. Let me make sure I'm saying everything I need to say. Rectification, aka fractional distillation. Hold on a second here. We're going to get into that. We'll talk about column still here in a minute. So don't worry about that quite yet. For a point here, someone on team, where was I? Team Targaryen. Can someone tell me what's going on in this photo right here? Amanda, Andy, or Dustin?
Aren't they using like gunpowder to test the alcohol? And depending on what it looks like, they know where they need to go.
Damn it, y'all, Amanda did it again. She did it again. She used the old, she did it, she always does it. This is the olden way, the old school way of testing the proof, right? So before we had fancier ways to do it, we literally put gunpowder, half gunpowder and half whatever spirit you were testing, right? And then you would lit it on fire. And if it turned blue, that was supposed to be a perfect 100 proof. It would ignite and have a blue flame. So that was, I think the word proof was, proof that this is, a perfect spirit or whatnot. So that's where that term proof comes from, which really is 50% ABV, right? Because we all know that proof is double ABV. The British use a different system, which is dumb. We don't need to learn it. We only need to learn the American one, which is double the ABV is the proof. Alrighty. So let's learn about the different types of stills. We got a pot still, so we were talking the alembic still, right? Column, we'll talk about in just a second. Then we got a multiple column, and then we got a hybrid. So let's talk about the original gangster here, the pot still. Two main parts here. We've got basically the pot and then the condenser. This is the oldest one. It says modern distillations made this type of still less commonly used. Kind of. A lot of people still use though a pot still, pot distillation. So we kind of already been over this, but we heat up our wash in here. It vaporizes, goes up the swan's neck, down the line arm, and then into the worm condenser where we cool it down and it recondenses, and then we've got spirit, right? Y'all stop me if you have any questions. So we just kind of went over this too, but pot still works in a batch process. So we got put our beer or wine, put it in the pot and distill it. And we have our first batch, the French call it bruit, about 25%. The Mexicans call it what?
Agua.
Ordinario.
Yes, who said that? Parth?
Yeah.
Parth, well done. And the Scottish call it what?
Low wine.
Low wine. Another one. That's the first batch, and then we redistill it. You can do it as many times as you want, right? Usually gets you about 55 and between 55 and 70%. Okay. Why might we use copper? I'm going to ask Team Lannister. Why do we like to use copper?
It helps remove some of the unwanted flavors.
Yeah, it helps pull down. It's harder for some of this vapor and the congeners to travel up, so it helps remove some of those unwanted ones as they're journeying up into the line arm here. Okay. If I'm going to ask Team Hound, Cagney, Aaron, or Julia, if I used, if I made my my pot still taller, what effect would that have on my distillate?
Try that again.
So if I made,
It's taller.
yes, if this thing was taller, if I intentionally made this way taller, how would that affect the end product, the distillate at the end?
It's gonna make it a lighter spirit, right? Because it's gonna take more effort on pure for it to get up to the top.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly right. You're losing more congeners because it's traveling further up. Make sense?
It isn't that even actually isn't the bulb? No, the bulb's for reflux, right?
That's a good question. I don't really know. That sounds right. I'm gonna go with yes.
Wow, plus 10 points. Hell yeah! Thanks, Connor.
It's actually -2 for me. Should have known that. I get to watch the winning team with the pizza party. If I don't get enough points, I don't get to join you guys. I just have to
You
watch.
sit in the corner and like don't eat. Watch everybody else eat.
Dunce cap, the whole thing. But yes, so if it's taller, it's going to be lighter, right? And more refined, fewer congeners. So the opposite would be true. If it's shorter, it'd be a heavier spirit and more congener laden. The speed also matters, the speed of the run. Help me out here, Team Stark, Tina, or Neil. What if I went through, what if I had a quicker or shorter run?
Yeah, harsher, like a harsher tasting.
More
Yeah, faster would be
congeners, or I
heavier.
guess like, yeah.
Where a slower run would be a lighter spirit. Okay. Those are some test questions, easy, not easy ones. They're hard for me, but those are definitely test questions. Now let's talk about the column still. Help me out here, your Targaryens, Amanda and Andy and Dustin. Who is Robert Stein or Aeneas Coffey?
The people that originally made the column stills.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So remember, before the 1800s, everyone was using the pot still. But then about 1826, Robert Stein invents the column still. And it was perfected by Coffey, this guy Coffey. He was the one who took it all around England and Ireland and sold it, and they call it a coffee still. Who can name a product of ours with this word in it?
Nika. Well, word. Coffee
Sorry.
gin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So they call it coffee gin because of this type of still that they still use. And I think that's kind of confusing, and they should probably take it off the label because it's confusing probably 95% of the public. What do you guys think? Do people get confused with that?
Yeah.
Yes, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to like Nika. The best way I remember it though is thinking of Nika. So the general public might not know it, but we know that Nika's named for the still itself versus the flavor.
Right. I just think they should put it on the bottle, but not in the name, perhaps. That's just one man's opinion, because it's going to confuse these people. They think they're getting like a espresso martini or something. Okay. So it revolutionized everything and way more labor efficient. We could create higher alcohol levels in much less time, right? We could get up to 90, 96.5 and fewer congeners. Think about trying to make, something lighter like a modern day vodka before this. You really couldn't do it. This is another one we Googled last year or the year before. Could you make a vodka in a pot still? And the answer we found is yes, someone tried to do it. It took them 18 batches to get to, above that 180 proof. 18 batches. Think how expensive that is. Think about how much stuff you lose. So a better way to do it is this invention, the column still, right? Which we can think of like, kind of like having a bunch of pot stills stacked on each other. Okay, I think I've got another slide on that, so I'll wait. But these are all synonyms with each other. Patent still, they called it, because Mr. Coffey put a patent, took the patent out on it. Column still, patent, all the same. Robert Stein invented it, but Aeneas, does anyone speak Gaelic or know how to pronounce his name? I don't really know how to do it. Anus? I don't know. I also, because I'm not really great at explaining scientific things, I'm actually going to have us, if you guys are cool with it, I'm just going to watch this video. It's like a minute about how column stills work. But we can't hear it, can we? Hold on one second. Let me do one other thing here. Let me make sure I'm sharing sound. Okay, here we go. You guys hear that?
No.
Okay, that's okay. Hold on one second. Share. I'm gonna try one more thing. And I hate doing videos. I never do this on Zoom usually, but I think it might be worth it. Let's see if we can hear it this time. Well. That's very odd. I wonder why it's not working. Oh well, I'm gonna share this with you guys in the group me and in the big email. That's odd. Okay. Okay, well, let me go back then a little bit and just kind of, you guys can suffer through me trying to explain this a little bit. So you put your wash in, right? And we heat it up down here. And then the vapor will start to travel up the system, these plates, right? And as they get heated up, it's probably hottest here. The vapor travels up and it creates a new pool, and there's reflux going on at each level. So they'll start to go up and then recondense back down here, and they hang out here for a little bit, and then they go up to the next one. When they vaporize, they go up a little bit more, and they travel up each plate and they're gaining alcoholic strength, right? Because as they get higher in alcoholic strength, it doesn't take as much heat to vaporize them, right? It's a miscible liquid. You've got more ABV. Once you get up here, now you're 45, 50. It takes less heat to get you to vaporize and go up another pot, another plate. And so then you get all the way. So you can get, this is how you can. It's basically like you have 10 pots on top of each other. They're plates there, right? Chambers, and you can get all the way up to, 75, 80%, maybe even higher than that. But you can take this off at any level as well. So you can take it off at 40%. You can take it off at 20%. You have all these little points that you can take it off. And then anything that doesn't quite make it can go down this rectifying tube, right? To go back down to the beginning, the boiler. Does that make sense? Our condenser is up here, it's cooling it down, and you can take it off at any point. Okay. Definitely name some spirits we would use a column still on.
Vodka.
Vodka, gin.
Gin, yeah. You can use it for anything. If you go to Old Forester, excuse me, anyone been to Old Forester? Cagney's been there. They've got a huge column still when you walk in. And they use like a hybrid, they basically use some of that for some of their spirit, and then they have some pot still stuff going on as well. But it's a good way to get, make at least a bit of spirit to then blend later. Okay, so then we talk about multiple column stills. We bring it on to the hydroselector. This is a way you add more hot water, and it makes it even easier to vaporize, and more congeners are removed. That's the hydroselector, sorry. The rectifier column. Let me move on to my slide. That's a Barry slide. You bring in the hydroselector, right? Add hot water to the mix, and it makes it vaporize. Oops, sorry. The other thing I was going to say is multiple column still. All right, so that little chart, that little illustration I had was just one of these. So you may see a multiple column still where you go through one, and then you start on another, and then you go through another. And oftentimes when you see a vodka brand, they'll say, "Oh, I'm 3 times distilled." They're usually counting the number of columns: 1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay.
Thrice distilled, right? 1, 2, 3, or 7 times distilled, going through 7 columns, perhaps.
Oh.
Connor, can you go through a little more detail about the hydroselector and the what was before that? The
multiple column?
Yeah,
The
and the
rectifier column.
Yeah.
So let's see if I can. Maybe not. So remember. Okay, so you're usually going to take things off a regular at 94%. Was someone about to chime in? I thought someone had a story about a rectifier column. So basically you add a little bit more really hot water. I cannot, Cagney, I really can't. So I'm going to find a video to send out along with the other just regular column still video to explain this a little bit better.
I mean, are we
What was the question again? Sorry.
No problem. He wanted to know a little bit more about the hydroselector.
Oh, okay.
Like
we-
when
are
you
we-
use it.
Are we assuming that, like, let's say, like, obviously you have your columns like blah blah stacked on top of each other? Are we assuming like the rectifier column is its own thing and that's what it does, and the hydroselector is on top of that and it does its own thing? So is that what the premise is?
I don't want to tell you something wrong because I don't really know.
Okay.
The hydroselector is the final column.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming, right? So it's own.
It's the final. It's not on top. You see in this multiple picture.
Mm-hmm.
So as it goes through, it would be the last column if it had the hydroselector in there.
So is this the one you're talking about, Parth, right here?
Yeah, this actually looks like a gin setup because that looks like a basket to do gin.
I think you're right.
Botanicals.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And that last column, I think, is a basket to do gin botanicals. That's at least what it looks like to me. But like the third one down, if this had a hydroselector, it would be that column where they would pump in the hot water to get to the highest level of alcohol you can get to off of a commercial still. that's what the hydro selector is.
Okay.
Not every column still is going to have that.
Yeah.
Parth, you just got 2 points, my friend. That sounds right to me. I'll take it. So, and to Parth's point, you might also use for gin a hybrid still, right? It's like a pot in the bottom where you might put the head right here, and then you go through a column. A column still on top of a pot still. Does that make sense? See why we might do that for gin. We'll learn a little bit more about gin and vodka next week. But we're, especially going through original distillation, you want those vapors to go through the Carter head and get those botanicals, and then reduce that ABV, or then go up through the column and increase the strength. Okay. So those are our 4 types of stills: pot, column, multiple column, and hybrid. Feel good about those? And like I said, everything we talk about today, we're going to be talking about in every other chapter. So we often mature our spirits, right? And we call the stuff, anything that comes right off the still, we call it new make. Let's see, Team Stark, what color is new make?
Clear.
Clear. Right? Andy, you are not on Team Stark. How dare you?
Wait, which team am I on?
You're Targaryen, man.
Targaryen.
You got to know.
Hey, if we can't have cocktails, we can do this.
My apologies.
That's almost -1. I'm not going to do it. I'm still going to give you a point. But you got to know your team, right? So new make comes off colorless, right? It's got a sharp biting aroma and taste. It's ready for filtration, dilution, coloring, bottling, and or maturation. Okay, someone just throw out some spirits that love maturation and oak.
Bourbon.
Yeah,
Tequila.
Rum.
almost any spirit category has oaking possibilities. Even vodka, some of these old Eastern European traditional vodkas would, every once in a while, they would put it in oak, right?
Huh?
Oh, we're hearing some airport conversation. Okay, we've got lots of different options for maturation vessels: small or large, used or new. What would have more impact on a spirit, a small vessel or a large oak vessel?
Small.
Small, right? Because you got more surface area. It's liquid to surface ratio, right? All right. Genius Quercus. It's supposed to be genus Quercus. We got American white oak is what we like to use quite often, especially with spirits. We use French oak as well, but American oak can add some really big flavors. We talk about, especially in bourbon or rye or any of one of these subcategories in American whiskey. Okay, we're going to talk about the structure of oak that we use for maturation. So these are all test questions, and they're good to know. So of that oak barrel, that wood, 40% of it we classify as cellulose, which is like the structure, the tough part of the wood. You've got lignin, which is kind of like the glue that holds it all together, and it also has the vanillins, these polyphenols called vanillins that add that aroma and flavor. And then you got the hemicellulose, the red layer, which is where all that good stuff comes from. Butterscotch, caramel, all those good flavors come from charring that layer, the red layer. So let's go in a little bit further. Okay, when you're oak aging, a lot of things happen at once. I've got a better slide for this, so sit tight, but extraction, evaporation, oxidation, concentration, filtration, and coloration. All of these things are going on at the same time. Let me show you here. I got a little illustrated slide. So first, what we're going to do, we got a lot of options too. You don't have to toast or char. You at least usually will toast, right? That's the first step. You would toast a barrel, It can degrade the oak, which gives it'll degrade the tannins, getting them red, nice and loose to give color to the whiskey when the new make spirit, which remember comes in colorless, it's going to interact with the wood here. It also degrades that lignin, that kind of gluey type of part of the wood, which will add some vanillins, which will add that vanilla aroma and taste. So you might just opt just to toast. We talk about that in wine all the time, right? You might just have toasted barrels. You don't often use charred barrels in wine. You can, but especially a lot of spirits, especially in the U.S., we use charred oak barrels. They really fire this thing up, and so that degrades that hemicellulose, that red layer, which adds a lot of the caramel kind of other flavors, butterscotchy types of flavors to the spirit. Call that the red layer. Okay, now that we've toasted and charred, we are ready to add that new make. Look at it go. Beautiful. Oof. Already thirsty. All right, so now we just put that in and we're going to put the bung in. And right now already we've got penetration of the spirit going into the wood, but we're also extracting some tannins and other things from that oak into the spirit. Those things are happening at the same time. We're extracting color. Someone tell me about the angel share, and by someone I mean Team Lannister, Bobby, Parth, or Chase, or Renee.
It's the evaporation
Evaporation, yeah.
of
The angel share, right? That'll they call it that because it literally evaporates out of the barrel and goes up to the heavens, right? And we'll learn about the various degrees of evaporation in different climates, because it definitely, if the warmer it is, the more evaporation you're going to get. What's also happening, and the more of this you have, the more of oxidation you have. But remember, barrels are not, they are slightly porous, and that's why we like them. Because those tiny little bitty, inlets, these little holes, will let some oxygen in, and a little bit of oxidation can create really interesting flavors, be very good for spirits, right? Aldehydes, we're creating aldehydes in that oak. Turns acids and alcohols into flavors. So that's happening at the same time, and all the while we are concentrating the spirit down. The evaporation is either evaporating out alcohol or water, depending on where you are, depending on the humidity in the area. But it could be concentrating into a higher ABV spirit. You're getting a more color. It's just going to become more concentrated. That's why we often like to, things that are aged 5 or 10 years are more expensive, because in theory, they're more concentrated and a special spirit, right? Any questions there? Okay. I think I covered all of that. The angel share can go from anywhere from 2 or 3 to 10%. Where's someone name a place, someone on Team Hound, Cagney, Aaron, or Julia, where's a place where you could get up to almost 10% loss if you had to guess? Where's a spirit production area?
I mean, that's be a lot more humidity. I would assume the South, I guess I would assume Kentucky. I mean,
Kentucky's going to be around anywhere from 2 to 4 on the higher, probably on the higher end of that 3. So somewhere even perhaps warmer or more humid.
So we're getting into into Mexico and stuff, like tequilas and mezcals.
Yeah, tequila will be up there, but we're really talking about the Caribbean. We get almost up to like 8, 9, 10%. We're talking about rum. We talk about that much angel share. It's crazy how much they lose. So when you see rum, Barbados, yeah, that's a great place. That's a great example. That's a point for you, Julia. Yeah, so if you look at rum that's aged 5 years, think about that angel share versus like a 5-year bourbon. You're getting a lot more concentration just being that little bit further south. Okay, we went through all of that. Longer aging usually means darker color. And then we've got a lot of options at post distillation, depending on the laws for each spirit. Some places you can add colorings and additives, right? Some places you cannot, or some spirit categories. You can't do this with bourbon, right? You can't have colorings, but you can do it with rum. Let's say you want to make it look like it's been aged longer, you can add some color. Filtration, you don't have to, but you can. Charcoal, we use charcoal often, especially with vodkas and whatnot. but we also use it like for Jack Daniels, right? We charcoal filter. We can blend. Oh, sorry, this is post distillation. No, that's right. That's right. Not post maturation, but post distillation. Blending, this happens more often than not. You're usually trying to create a consistency, a house style. You want that Jack Daniels to taste exactly like you had it in high school when I could throw a football clear across those mountains. You want it to taste the same, right? And I could do it. I'm just kidding. I was a theater kid. Oh, back in my glory days where I could, belt that aria off the stage. And then bottling is another choice. Okay. All right, we've got, we already went over the proofs, right? So, in the good old US of A, and most of the world will use, our system of proof, which is double, half the proof is the ABV, right? We all know that. So 151 would be 75.5% ABV. Why is 151 a special number, or 150, 151?
Flammable.
It's flammable. That's right. I believe at one point I came back from Puerto Rico when I was like 17 and bought all this Bacardi 151, and I couldn't check it, or you couldn't bring it with you on the plane at the time. It was like 20 years ago. 23 years ago. I'm old. Oh man. Okay, there's that. You don't have any other notes for that. Here's just a couple preview questions for the future. So I'm gonna go down the line here. I think I'm on Team Start. So Tina or Neil, what ingredient must gin contain? I know we haven't covered this yet, but what must it have in it?
Juniper.
Juniper is correct. Yes. Help me out here, Team Targaryen, Amanda, Andy, or Dustin. What's the main difference between mezcal and tequila?
More drink? Oh, you're good. I'm okay, thank you.
Team Targaryen, Amanda, Andy, or Dustin? I'll open it up to anyone else. Difference
The
between
plant, right?
Mezcal can be made with
versus
multiple
other
different
agave.
agaves. Tequila is
Everyone
only
at once.
100% Blue Weber.
Yes, I heard a bunch of things, and I think, yeah, tequila must be from blue agave. There's a lot of differences, but tequila must be from blue agave alone. Whereas mezcal is kind of the broader term for an agave-based spirit, right? We'll learn all about that in a couple chapters. Help me out here, Team Lannister. What is cachaça?
Cachaça is made from sugar cane juice,
Yes.
and rum is made from molasses.
Sometimes rum can be made from sugarcane juice as well,
Okay.
but cachaça is Brazil's, answer to rum, and it's sugarcane juice, and it can be under 40%. So you wouldn't call it, can't be classified as a rum in the US standards, at least. Nailed it, part. And help me out here, Team Hound, Cagney, Aaron, or Julia. What category of spirit is chartreuse?
It's an Amari.
Liqueur?
It's an Amari.
Yeah, it's a bittered spirit, Amari, right?
Yes.
Well done, gang. Okay, that's chapter 1. Any questions on any of that? Like I said, it's a lot of information, and this is, to me, is the toughest chapter because of all the scientific stuff or processes. The rest of the book, I think, I love the CSS class because it's all about, you also learn about some brands, which is cool. We don't do that in CSW as much. You learn about actual brands in CSS, and we learn about the kind of romance of each spirit. And most of these production processes that we're going to read about later, we've learned about today. For the most part, you've at least got the foundation of it. So I would argue that this is the hardest chapter. It was for me. You might think it's easy, but this was it's good to really get a firm grip on this one. Okay, sensory evaluation for spirits. I'm just going to ask some questions here, Team Stark. If I was going to set up a spirits tasting, how would I organize it as far as ABV goes? Would I go low to high, high to low?
Low to high.
Low to high, right? We can go flights of spirits, similar products 6 to 8 at a time. I like to use wine glasses. I think they work great for spirits tastings, right? And then age, youngest to oldest. What about the option of chilling your spirit? What's the book answer? Team Targaryen, Amanda, Andy, or Dustin? Do you chill spirits?
No.
I think the
You
book
can.
answer is some.
Okay.
Depends on the spirit.
Yeah, they say gin. If you would have it in a gin and tonic, you might chill gin. What do you guys normally do when you're out and about? Always like to ask because you can do it
Room temp.
however you want. Room temp.
Yeah, but it depends on the spirit too, and like who you're dealing with.
Yeah,
You don't shake bourbon in certain products. You just don't do that.
right.
At least off-prem, we don't have ice and things to access when we're out and about like that, so I'm just serving room temp.
Perfect. So the practical thing is, well, I guess it's kind of like this. It's kind of both. You can do whatever you want. Okay, this is our tasting rationale. And when we taste together, we'll use something like this. We'll use this, I guess. Okay. The only other things that are really questions from chapter 2 would be if we can notice aromatics from a distance of 6 inches from the nose, what do we consider that?
Intense.
Aromatically intense, right? 3 inches is medium. At mouth would only be light. Who can tell me what oxidized or, sorry, what does rancio mean? I just kind of answered it.
Oxidized.
Oil,
Yep. Yeah, basically. Why might you dilute a spirit? Add water.
To intensify aromas and flavors.
Yeah, to bring out some more of the aromatics, right? Those are mainly the questions you're going to get on chapter 2. Now, just to be safe, the way to do it is to get on the course portal eventually, and you're going to go through every chapter and you go through the flashcards for chapter 2 and the practice quiz for chapter 2 to make sure we got all the questions covered from that chapter. But that one's a lot more simple, a lot simpler than chapter 1, obviously. So we only have a couple slides for it. Any questions about today? That's all I have for us. That's it. We will do gin and vodka next time, which are really great chapters. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to set a couple dates for some lab tastings throughout the fall, which we'll probably do in Smyrna in the fancy wine room, and I'll Zoom you guys in, whoever needs to be Zoomed in. And we'll probably have to just figure out some either, I don't know how we're going to do samples. Either we'll just, have you guys grab some, or I can maybe send some down. But I'll get some dates going. And that's all I have for us today. Any
Awesome.
questions,
Thanks, Connor.
comments, concerns?
thank you.
No, thank you, Connor.
Cool. You guys are awesome. Christina, did you drink? Do you have another drink? I'm just making sure there's no point.
I think it was like 12, but I don't know. It could have been 2.
We'll give you one more because I'm assuming you have one more before too long. So you get one more point.
It
Thanks
was
for
2
joining us.
total. Nothing too crazy.
Exactly. Thank you for joining on vacation. Thank you all for joining just in general, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Connor.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.